Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, we have 6 new capital city disasters that we're going to go over. These were sent to me by Mindy from Temples of Jesus. Make sure to check out her channel. I'll put the link for it in the description below. She has been looking up a bunch of different things taking place in these capital cities, and I added them to my spreadsheet. I also included column H, or I added this to give credit for anybody that's submitted stories to me. I had to go back and try to find everybody. So if you're not on here, just let me know. You can access the spreadsheet by clicking on the link below in the description, and then you can go to the tab called Disasters Capital Cities. And then if I'm missing your name, let me know and I'll put it on here. Okay, so I want to do that. And then at the end of the video, after going through these 6 disasters and happenings, I want to go over something that was sent to me in this email. It says, sharing as anonymous. I read a comment that they couldn't believe that we would not be explicitly warned by the prophet of the second coming. So that reminded me of this quote. I'm not sure if you have used this quote or not. Sharing in case you haven't and would like to add this to your videos and spreadsheets. Thanks for all your videos. Thanks for tracking the second coming for us. It's all very much appreciated. Smiley face. And then Anonymous puts the quote. There will be no general warning to the membership that things will be shortly falling apart. We've been commanded to follow the signs of the times, and that is all the warning we need or will be given, but the membership is asleep. Like the 10 virgins, we have been commanded to watch and prepare, but like the people in the days of Noah, many members have become lulled into a sense of security. This quote-unquote lack of warning is designed to weed out the tares, the all is well in Zion crowd. Spencer W. Kimball, Faith Precedes the Miracle. Now, as a matter of fact, I had brought this up a long time ago, and I was since told that this is not an accurate quote, or if it is accurate, it's actually not found in Faith Precedes the Miracle, but I haven't been able to verify this quote at all. But I'm going to show you what it says in Faith Precedes the Miracle, because this is the gist of what he says. And when we're talking about being surprised that there wouldn't be an explicit warning, there has been. There absolutely has been. That's like all I go over on my channel are the warnings that are being put out in tracking them. So, for example, President Nelson, since the time that he became a general authority and started giving talks in General Conference, when you compare him to all the rest of the prophets of this dispensation, he has by far spoken the most about the second coming. Remember, he is the one that said time is running out, explicitly. He also, 2 conferences ago, called on us to be the people of the second coming. The only other person that compares to President Nelson is President Ezra Taft Benson, with 21 times. President Nelson, 22. Okay. Also, no one that's like next in line of seniority and authority, they don't even come close. President Oaks, nope. President Ballard, nope. Jeffrey R. Holland, nope. And by the way, prayers for him, because as far as I know, he's still hospitalized. I haven't heard any news about that. If you find out anything, please let me know. So, yeah, I would say that that's pretty explicit, just what President Nelson has said in how much he talks about the second coming. But not just him, but all the rest of the speakers at General Conference. I have this phrase tracker where I keep track of, I keep a tally of the number of talks that include these words or phrases. And in column AX, I have second coming. And you can see, just by looking at the colors, that's kind of been a big topic for the last few years compared to years previous. The only other time that kind of compares would be the 70s. And then before that, not really so much. 1958, for some reason, saw a spike. So there's only a couple times that it's been talked about this much, and actually 2020 was a record-breaking year for a number of talks using the term second coming. So it is pretty explicit, and it's not just second coming. It's been a while since I've done um, a video about my phrase tracker, but we've looked at so many different things on this, and it is pretty clear. Let's see, final phase. You think that's explicit or clear? So 2020, 2021, 2022, go back in time. You never see that phrase any other time. But you see it 3 years in a row, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Look at the 10 virgins. All of a sudden, you have a block of the 10 virgins being mentioned. Go back in time. Yeah, here and there, sporadically. But this is the most number of years in a row, 4 years in a row, where the 10 virgins are brought up. So I'm not going to go over this entire thing, but if you have not seen my videos on this spreadsheet, I have a playlist dedicated to it. Just find the playlist that's called, I think it's called something like Phrase and Scripture Frequency. So yeah, look at this right here. Coming days and incoming days, which there's an overlap there, but look at incoming days. You don't even see that going back in time. You see it starting with President Nelson's presidency. 2, and then 4, and then 1, and then nothing in 2021, and then 4 times in 2022. So, I mean, I guess if you're not paying attention, it's kind of hard. Unless you're not paying attention, it's kind of hard to miss the fact that the second coming is close and that they are warning us. Yeah. So okay. So let's go over these. Let's go over these disasters first, and then we'll take a look at faith precedes. What's it called? Faith precedes the miracle. Yeah. Faith precedes the miracle. All right. So first, we're going to Niger. Niger's ousted president reduced to eating dry rice as hopes for a peaceful resolution of the coup fade. So in the capital city, the elected president, there was a coup, and he's being detained. Let's see. So Mohamed Bazoum, the democratically elected president of Niger, said he is being kept isolated and forced to eat dry rice and pasta by the military junta. I looked it up, and that's how it's pronounced, junta. Like always, I don't know why we can't just make up our own English word for it. This is clearly imported from another language. I don't know if it's Spanish, but I've seen it a million times. It's just like whenever I read it, I've always, I don't, when you just like read a word, but you don't necessarily like sound it out in your mind. And it's not a word that I use all the time. I don't know how often you're talking about juntas, but anyway, I had to I had to look it up. Anyway, who overthrew him and are refusing to cede power despite international pressure. All right. And it confirms down here, it's in the, I guess you would pronounce it Nigerian, not to be confused with Nigeria, because there's that, Nigerian capital. We're talking about the capital of Niger, Niamey. I don't know if that's how that's pronounced, but you can see they're looking pretty bold. They're pretty confident in what they're doing, but this is taking place in Niger. This is dated. This story is dated the 9th. Okay, so just a couple days ago. And then, interestingly, another thing having to do with politics. Okay, candidate in Ecuador's presidential election, Fernando Villavicencio. I'm going to do it in the Spanish way though. Villavicencio shot dead. Okay, so it's basically like a political assassination. A candidate in Ecuador's forthcoming presidential election who campaigned against corruption and gangs has been shot dead at a campaign rally. Fernando Villavicencio, a member of the country's National Assembly, was attacked as he left the event in the capital, Quito, on Wednesday. He is one of the few candidates to allege links between organized crime and government officials in Ecuador. President Guillermo Lasso said organized crime was behind the killing. Ecuador has historically been a relatively safe and stable country in Latin America, but crime has shot up in recent years, fueled by the growing presence of Colombian and Mexican drug cartels, which have infiltrated local criminal gangs. So, I don't know. I don't know. It's just interesting. And it's sad. Prayers for his loved ones that he left behind. And hopefully this elected president, hopefully he'll be safe and all order will be restored. Okay, so there's this. Now, I actually kind of remember this. I have like the faintest memory of this happening. Okay, it says Governor Reynolds requests federal assistance for Davenport apartment collapse response. Do you remember this, or do you remember seeing this in the news? So this story is from June 7th. Okay, this is in Des Moines, Iowa, the capital of Iowa. All right, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds requested federal assistance from the Biden administration for Scott County in response to the partial collapse of a Davenport apartment, as seen right here. That you just don't expect that kind of thing. It makes you think back to the what was it called, like the sea surf or seaside sea surf collapse, seaside, Surfside condominium collapse. This was back in 2021. This was a very strange happening. This happened in an area where there's a lot of Jews. And the first survivor that came up out of the rubble, his name was Jonah. And in this same year, in 2021, there was a man that was swallowed by a whale. Let's see. Swallowed alive by a whale. 2021. Let's go to LAD Bible. This guy was swallowed by a whale that same year. I can't remember which one happened first. Let's see. This is the 1st of July. And this was just like a few days earlier, June 24th. Like you have these two things that both call back to the story of Jonah in the Bible. It's really weird. Anyway, that's not what this video is about, but I've done videos about it. Just look up whale on my channel. You'll find it. Okay. So anyway, this collapsed. Okay, in a letter to let's see. The partial collapse of the 6-story apartment building happened on May 28th. 3 people died and multiple people were injured. State officials estimate about 100 households have been displaced from the apartment and the surrounding area due to safety concerns. Additionally, 3 businesses that were located in the apartment building and 12 businesses from the surrounding area have been closed due to safety concerns. These closures have impacted about 18 employees. That has got to be frustrated. Hopefully their needs are being taken care of in some kind of way. I don't know if like insurance would cover wages or things like that in this kind of situation, like business insurance. Cracked floors, bowed walls, many warnings, but no action at Iowa building before deadly collapse. Des Moines, Iowa. So many people knew something wasn't right at the 116-year-old Davenport apartment building. The structural engineer who documented the shaky wall, the head of a masonry company who wouldn't let his workers onto the site, the city inspector who threatened to close some units, a downtown official who called 911 and asked firefighters to take a look, and tenants who told of cracks in their floors and walls. but no one ordered residents out, and it was only when a section of the 6-story brick, steel, and concrete building tumbled to the ground on the afternoon of May 28th that anyone seemed to connect the dots. 3 men were dead, about 50 tenants were left homeless without their possessions, and the city was faced with one of its taller buildings at risk of crumbling in the heart of its downtown. So, again, very vivid imagery. I mean, this building right here, I can't say for sure. This looks like this is like the city hall or something like that. Let's see. Let me see if I can find out. Davenport Apartments, Des Moines, Iowa. Maps, please. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to figure this out. Why doesn't Davenport come up? Davenport. Okay, whatever. Okay, let's just move on. Sorry. But that looks like it's the city hall or something like that. Maybe it's like the county building, the courthouse. I don't know. Okay. Boise. Okay. Boise reaches 60 degrees for first time in record 157 days. So this is referring to last winter. It went 157 days below 60 degrees. That's what this is talking about. More than 3 weeks after the official start of spring, Boiseans experienced what felt like the first day of the blossom season on Saturday. The city of trees reached 60 degrees on Saturday and snapped some weather records in the process. For the first time since November 1st, 2022, or 157 days, Boise hit or surpassed the 60-degree mark. The 157-day stretch sets a new record for consecutive days below 60 degrees, topping the previous record of 153 days set in 1899. Let's see, 60 degrees F to C. That's 15.55 degrees Celsius. All right, the next one. Now, this is from the beginning of the year. Okay, this is Sacramento, California. How fast-moving floods took a deadly toll on California's capital. No one expected it. And I think I actually referenced this very article at the beginning of the year, because if you go to my Second Coming timeline, the year before, in 2022, the first big event that happened was the Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai volcano off of the coast of Tonga, the undersea volcano. That's how 2022 started. So I was curious, how is 2023 going to start? What's going to be the first big thing? And that actually started the day after Christmas, where California experienced a series of storms. In the weather phenomena is referred to as an atmospheric river, where it's like basically like a river of air in the sky, just continually pushing moist air in storms to California. It was also, I think, Washington and Oregon too, but mostly California, where it was just getting hit over and over and over again with rainstorms. And so the land didn't have a time to it didn't have time to get rid of the water for it to run off or to evaporate. So it just became saturated. And there were mudslides and all sorts of things. There's flooding and stuff like that. So that was the first thing that happened this year, the California flooding as a result of the California atmospheric river. So going back to the article, you can see some of the pictures. Over the past 2 weeks, a parade of powerful atmospheric rivers has brought both relief and ruin to California. While the rain is a welcome sight in the drought-plagued state, the violent storms landed in a quick succession, causing flash floods, billions of dollars in damage, and killing at least 18 people. And with more storms to come, even a drizzle could prove dangerous in areas where the soils and infrastructure are already oversaturated. California was slammed yet more. California was slammed with yet more wind, rain, and snow on Saturday, raising yet more concerns about flooding, power outages, and dangerous travel. So there, I'm assuming that's, let's see, flooding from the rainstorm, Sacramento, American Rivers, downtown. Yeah, that's downtown Sacramento right there. It's the capital of California. And you can see flooding over here. There's this roadway and bridge. Um, I don't know how much more extensive it was in this part of the city, but it did affect Sacramento as well as the entirety or a good portion of California, and then also Washington and Oregon, if I remember right. The floods have capped a year of brutal and record-setting weather whiplash in Sacramento. Just months before, this wreckage of trees helped the city cool down during an oppressive September heat wave when temperatures reached an unprecedented 116 degrees Fahrenheit. The storms delivered a new record for the most consecutive days of rain, just 1 year after the city marked its longest stretch of dry days and saw its driest November on record in 2022. So, yeah, whiplash. Going from hot and dry to all of a sudden flooding, drowning in water. That is insane. Okay, and then the last one, tornadoes in Arkansas, Midwest, kill at least 21 people. The date on this article is March 31st of this year. And I think I remember when this happened. Little Rock, Arkansas. Unrelenting tornadoes that tore through parts of the South and Midwest killed at least 21 people, shredded homes in shopping centers, and collapsed a theater roof during a heavy metal concert in Illinois. Emergency responders across the region counted the dead and surveyed the damage Saturday morning after tornadoes touched down into the night. Part of a sprawling storm system that also brought wildfires to the southern plains and blizzard conditions to the upper Midwest. The dead included 4 in the small town of Wynne, Arkansas. Cross County Coroner Eli Long told KAIT TV. Other deaths were reported in Alabama, Illinois, Indiana, and the Little Rock area. So Little Rock, that's the capital city of Arkansas. Here's a tweet showing a tornado in that area. Okay. Watch the moments a tornado moved through West Little Rock, Arkansas on Friday. At least one person was killed and more than 24 hurt, some critically, in the Little Rock area, authorities said. Here's like another video. I'm not going to play the videos here because I'll get a copyright strike. The tornado in Little Rock tore first through neighborhoods in the western part of the Arkansas capital and shredded a small shopping center that included a Kroger grocery store. It then crossed the Arkansas River into North Little Rock and surrounding cities, where widespread damage was reported to homes, businesses, and vehicles. Little Rock resident Nikki Scott took cover in the bathroom after her husband called to warn her of a tornado. She could hear glass shattering and emerged to find her house was one of the few on her street that didn't have a tree on it. Quote, "It's just like everyone says, it got really quiet, then it got really loud," Scott said afterward, as chainsaws roared and sirens blared. Even in the evening, officials in Pulaski County announced a confirmed fatality in North Little Rock. So when we put that on my spreadsheet, this is what it looks like. So I've added a new column, which is now column A, where I'm going to highlight whenever I add something new by just highlighting that cell in yellow. So this is what we covered just now. So the flooding in atmospheric river storms in California, but specifically Sacramento. And then 2 months after that, Little Rock, Arkansas with the tornado. And then Boise, a month after that, with this record of 157 days below 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And then a couple months later, April, May, no, 1 month later, you had this collapse of the Davenport apartment in Des Moines, Iowa. So we have 4 new events that took place earlier in the year. And then we scroll up to the top. Can you, okay, look at this for a second. Look as I'm scrolling, and this is over the course of just a year. But even more than that, if you start right here with May 17th, everything from here upward is since May 17th. It's only been a couple months. May, well, let's not even include May because, okay, so from May to June. So June, July, August. Everything from here up within the last 3 months. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. All right, and then the 2 newest entries from just within like the last week, the military coup and imprisonment of Mohammed Bazoum, and then the political assassination of presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio. All right. Okay, now let's go to Spencer W. Kimball, and let's see what he said in his book called Faith Precedes the Miracle. All right. So, again, the quote from the email, it's not in here. It's not in this book. I can tell you that right now. I searched for it, but it seems like whoever put this together kind of like paraphrased what was said in this chapter. So I don't think it's really too long. Should be able to get through this pretty quickly. See, I did a search for general warning, and general warning does come up, but just not how it's quoted in that quote. Okay, preparedness. The 10 virgins. The ancients looked forward to the coming of the Lord and asked, "When shall all these things be?" The pioneers thought it would be soon and watched for signs. Our grandparents watched for the sprouting of the fig tree. Our parents watched for the reddening of the sky. And we ourselves have heard all our lives that the second coming is near. Now, before anybody goes crazy, all right, again, I know for a fact, well, okay, I'm not going to say that. I'm pretty confident that when we're talking about general authorities, apostles, prophets, making statements in general conference in other places, there have not been any quotes from anybody talking about a specific generation until 1967, with the exception of Joseph Fielding Smith and how he felt as he wrote Doctrines of Salvation in 1936, and then Joseph Smith himself all the way back in 1843. So, no doubt, being the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and from the time of Joseph Smith, there's been a keen interest in the second coming, and people watching for the signs and hoping that it would be within their lifetime. But that's separate from quotes and statements from leadership in the church. That did not really start until 1967. Okay? So we need to keep that in mind. Do we lose faith? Do we lose patience? Do we lose hope? Do we get weary in waiting because the day is long and the event delayed? The writer of Hebrews warns, sorry, let me scroll back up. Please, sir. Okay, I guess it's not going to let me. I want to use the arrow keys. The writer of Hebrews warns, "Cast not away therefore your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward. For ye have need of patience, that after ye have done the will of God, ye might receive the promise." For yet a little while, and he that shall come will come and will not tarry. I suspect that many people who 5 years ago had a rich larder, a full pantry, and a year's supply of basic necessities have let their stock dwindle. I suspect that many people have let their insurance lapse. Death seems in the future, for at the moment, calamity is absent and hunger is not knocking at the door. And again, this is kind of fitting after what we just saw in Lahaina, Hawaii. You know, one of the last places you would expect to be wiped out by a wildfire. Okay, it is difficult to be prepared for an event so long delayed. Many have found it too difficult, and they slumber without due preparation. But the day approaches and will finally come, that is sure. It is only the when that is unknown. The apostles of the ancient days were also impatient to know when these events would transpire. To them, Jesus said, before he ascended, "It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power." And Paul said to the Thessalonians, "For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." Uh, Again, that is so applicable to what just happened. I'm not saying that this is referring to Lahaina, Hawaii, but I think that they just experienced a form of this. You know, you think of Hawaii as a place that you go to visit if you're from outside of Hawaii. It's a tourist destination. It's a place for peace and leisure and pleasure and relaxing and stuff like that. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travaileth upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Well, unless they jump in the ocean, in the case of Lahaina. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in which watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. That's so key. In an hour such as ye think not. You know, obviously, if you take the entire world and you asked everybody when the second coming is going to happen, out of those that believe that there will be a second coming, you're going to have a whole range of guesses. I'm sure there's somebody out there that has a guess for any given year. You know, so if you were to like do a poll and be like, do you think it's going to happen in 2025? There's going to be some people that are going to say, yeah, I think it's going to be 2025. So obviously somebody probably has it right. But I think that when you look at the world as a whole, when you look at the church, there's so many people that just have no idea. And they think everything's just fine and dandy, despite the fact that all these signs are manifesting themselves. You know, this is a warning that, look, it can happen anytime. Even among this community, I think some of us hesitate to say that it could happen tomorrow, for example, because we think that we know how prophecy has to be fulfilled, that we know exactly how things are going to play out. And I would think that that'd be a perfect time for the Lord to come. When you think that, no, there's still more time. We haven't done this. We haven't done that. Well, maybe that has happened in a way that you don't think. Many of the Lord's parables and sayings urged men to be prepared for a second coming and for the end of this period of the world's existence. He gave the parable of the rich young fool who, in the feeling of temporal security, raised his inadequate barns and built greater ones in which to store his fruits and goods. The man said to himself, "Soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said unto him, "Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be?" That's pretty powerful. You know, I'm doing pretty good in life. I'm doing, great. Everything's taken care of. Let's relax. Let's not worry about stuff anymore. No, fool. It's going to be tonight. Always be ready. Don't let your guard down. And then he gave the parable of the fish and the net. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which when it was full, they drew to shore and sat down and gathered the good into the vessels, but cast the bad away. This is like another version of the wheat and the tares. I recall my first trip to Hawaii. Oof, look at this. Isn't this timely? I wasn't even planning on this, by the way. Just Anonymous's email just kind of like stuck out to me. I recall my first trip to Hawaii. The Samoan and Hawaiian saints were gathered together in a grand celebration. On the morning program was uh, Hukilau. Hukilau. I was invited to participate. Wearing some old overalls, I waded with them into the sea. The boats had spread the nets far out, and now we began to pull in the nets. Heave ho, they cried, and all together we pulled and strained. As the net load came closer to the shore, it was fuller and heavier than the unruly waves covered. Sorry, and heavier, and the unruly waves covered us many times. But finally, the net was in the shallow water, and the fish began to jump frantically, trying to escape. Eventually, sweating and straining and puffing, we pulled the catch up on the sand. All kinds of fish were caught, big and little, fat and snake-like. With bulging eyes and gasping mouths, they struggled. The initiated who knew fish and were able to judge picked the worthless ones and cast them back into the sea. The edible ones were saved, and the catch was brought to the fire for the feast. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just. From Matthew 13:49. He gave us the parable of the farmer who sowed good seed in his ground, but whose enemy planted tares in the field. As both the wheat and the tares grew up in the same field together, the question was asked of the landowner, "Shall we go and gather up the tares?" The householder said, "Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn." The time of the reapers is near at hand. Certainly the fig tree, and we just talked about, the banyan tree in Lahaina, how it seemed to have survived, where everything else around it was burnt to a crisp. This banyan tree, which is a type of fig tree, survived, although some of it is burned. Anyway, just watch my last video for more about that. So certainly the fig tree is shooting forth its leaves, and the summer is nigh. In the signs of the times presage the harvest with its separation of the righteous and the unrighteous. Certainly there are today false Christs and deceivers in the land, such as were spoken of by the Lord from the heights of the Mount of Olives. When was this put out? Publication date 1972. And I'm sorry, but since 1972, things are really separated. That's one of the buzzwords right now is polarization. Sometimes it's along just like political lines, but there's a lot of like polarization between right and wrong, good and bad, morality and immorality. There's a lot of polarization. Even more so than 1972. Has there ever been an era when so many nations, large and small, have been involved in wars? Were there ever times when there were more rumors of wars and threats and intrigues? We think of Russia and China, of Africa and Vietnam, of the Near East and Ireland. The places change, but the turmoil continues. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Let's look at my Second Coming timeline. So right now, there's kind of like two bigger wars that are going on. Probably the two biggest, I think, the Ukraine war and the Syrian civil war. Just a little while ago, a couple weeks ago, there was the biggest incursion into the West Bank since, well, in 20 years by Israel into the West Bank. Riots, um, Operation Shield and Arrow. You go back, and soon we have the Afghanistan war. And of course, I don't have everything on here. The Arab Spring, which was a series of revolutions and protests and stuff. The Iraq War, the second Lebanon War. And by the way, pretty soon here, it very well could be that we're talking about the third Lebanon War. They're talking about that right now in the news. Things are really tense on the northern border of Israel. The second Lebanon War was back in 2006, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Second Congo War. Anyway, I could go on and on. Kosovo War, First Congo War, Bosnian War, Croatian War of Independence. Now we're getting pretty far back, but we're still in the 90s. Cold War, 10-Day War, Gulf War, Soviet-Afghan War, Iran-Iraq War, First Lebanon War, the Dirty War, the Falklands War, Vietnam War, Yom Kippur War, the War of Attrition. This had to do with Israel versus Egypt, Soviet Union, PLO, Jordan, Syria, Cuba, Kuwait, the Football War, 6-Day War. We already said Vietnam War. Okay, so yeah, it has been pretty insane. Okay. Jesus spoke of famines and pestilences, and we remember Biafra in Bangladesh. He predicted earthquakes and other terrestrial disturbances, and we think of earthquakes and landslides in California, Chile, and Greece, Japan, and Alaska, and unprecedented floods in the United States. Well, you know what? It's become even more unprecedented. In fact, let's see, flooding in Montpelier, Vermont. I did a video about this, and this was an unprecedented flooding event. Montpelier, other parts of Vermont confront record flooding. Look at that. That's the State House right there, the Capitol building. And this is the city of Vermont flooded. Anyway, I don't need to remind you. I'm struggling to keep track of it all on spreadsheets like this. Where to go? I already closed out of it. My capital city disasters spreadsheet and my second coming timeline spreadsheet, and then we have all my disasters spreadsheets. We have die-offs of animals, mostly fish and sharks and stuff like that. Earthquakes. We've had some really big earthquakes and tsunamis, and we had a really big earthquake this year in Turkey. Hurricanes, wildfires, and I've added some new ones. I'm going to talk about this some other time, but I've added the Australia Black Saturday brush fire. Montana had its worst wildfire season in 2017. That's new. And then I have the Hawaii wildfires that are currently ongoing. So, yep, sounds like things have gotten worse since 1972. Surely the end is near as we read the signs of the times. But when? For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. This is the scripture that Elder Maxwell talked about when he said that there's going to be a compression of events. And boy, I feel like we're seeing that right now. It's just becoming more and more frequent and common to have all these disasters happening. Okay, Now, here's the term that I looked up: general warning. Okay, he says we have the general warning that comes from these world conditions, but we have no precise timetable. Let's go back to the quote. The quote says, "There will be no general warning to the membership that things will shortly be falling apart." Well, yeah, I mean that, but that's paraphrasing. So it's not that it's not true. Um, Spencer W. Kimball does talk a lot about how we're supposed to discern the signs of the times, what they look like. They've been going on, they're increasing, right? But he says more. Let's keep reading. For as the lightning comes out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. The Redeemer stated further, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the sign of the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Am I going to do it? No. Joseph Smith said that the prophet will know, because just like it says in Amos, the Lord God does nothing until he tells his servants, the prophets. So I'm not going to read that quote for the millionth time. This is okay. Anyway, he gave us another parable to try to make clear the importance of being always prepared. It is the parable of the 10 virgins, a powerful warning to all men. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And boy, there are a lot of people slumbering right now and sleeping, and would argue against this very video and others like it, whether from me or from others, that, oh, well, let's say it's not going to come for another 50 years. It's not going to come in our lifetime. And at midnight there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they were ready, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, verily, I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. I believe that the 10 virgins represent the people of the Church of Jesus Christ, and not the rank and file of the world. All of the virgins, wise and foolish, had accepted the invitation to the wedding supper. They had knowledge of the program and had been warned of the important day to come. They were not the Gentiles or the heathens or the pagans, nor were they necessarily corrupt and reprobate, but they were knowing people who were foolishly unprepared for the vital happenings that were to affect their eternal lives. They had the saving, exalting gospel, but it had not been made the center of their lives. So, a mismanagement of priorities. Being distracted by the world, being too wrapped up in pleasure and entertainment and material wealth and other things, instead of putting the Lord first and knowing that this is going to happen and that you need to be ready. They knew the way, but gave only a small measure of loyalty and devotion. I ask you, what value is a car without an engine, a cup without water, a table without food, a lamp without oil. Rushing for their lamps to light their way through the blackness, half of them found them empty. They had cheated themselves. They were fools, these 5 unprepared virgins. Apparently, the bridegroom had tarried for reasons that were sufficient and good. Time had passed, and he had not come. They had heard of his coming for so long, so many times, that the statement seemingly became meaningless to them. Would he ever come? So long had it been since they began expecting him that they were rationalizing that he would never appear. And I'm sorry to say, but I feel like there are people, hopefully it's none of you that are listening to this, but I feel like there have been people that have been in this frame of mind, commenting, whether it's on my videos or other videos or Second Coming groups, or even just people that you hear in real life, not on the internet, that it's almost like they think that the church itself is a fiction. And there's some people that think that. They say that the Book of Mormon is inspired fiction, and they treat the church more like it's a philosophy rather than like actual, that these things are literally going to happen, or that they have happened. For example, miracles that have taken place in the past, that the Book of Mormon is what it says that it is. And so it would seem that from this crowd, you get these kind of things, the rationalization that you don't need to worry about it. Stop bothering me. Stop scaring me. It's not going to happen. And then he continues, perhaps it was a myth. Hundreds of thousands of us today are in this position. Confidence has been dulled and patience worn thin. It is so hard to wait and be prepared always, but we cannot allow ourselves to slumber. The Lord has given us this parable as a special warning. At midnight, the vital cry was made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all the virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. Even the foolish ones trimmed their lamps, but their oil was used up, and they had none to refill the lamps. They hastened to make up for lost time. Now, too late, they were becoming conscious of the tragedy of unpreparedness. They had been taught, they had been warned all their lives. At midnight, precisely at the darkest hour, when least expected, the bridegroom came. When the world is full of tribulation and help is needed, but it seems the time must be past. And it talks about that in the Book of Mormon. People thinking that the time was past for the prophecy to come true. But it seems the time must be past and hope is vain. Then Christ will come. The midnights of life are the times when heaven comes to offer its joy for man's weariness. But when the cry sounds, there is no time for preparation. Again, it's just like what happened in Lahaina. People just going about their lives, shopping, swimming, hanging out at the banyan tree, playing with the chickens, and then all of a sudden, fire is just all around you. Coming so fast that you don't even have time to escape. You have to go to the ocean to escape the fire. And the pavement becomes so hot that it burns your feet. And you're in your car, but flames are all around you. No time. No time. The lamps then make patterns of joy on the hillside, and the procession moves on toward the house of banqueting, and those without lamps or oil are left in darkness. Then they have been, when they have belatedly sought to fulfill the requirements and finally reach the hall, the door is shut. In the daytime, wise and unwise seemed alike. Midnight is the time of test and judgment, and of offered gladness. Paul wrote, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. For they that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. The foolish asked the others to share their oil, but spiritual preparedness cannot be shared in an instant. The wise had to go, else the bridegroom could have gone unwelcomed. They needed all their oil for themselves. They could not save the foolish. The responsibility was each for himself. You guys, there are people I know that have recently come back to church, including Mindy, um, the one that shared all these different stories with me from the Temples of Jesus channel. We've talked about it. I'm pretty sure we've talked about it in an interview that I did with her. I'm sure she's shared it on her channel. I think she's okay with me saying this. I'm pretty sure. I just talked to her on the phone, actually. And we've talked about how, she started coming back around that time that President Nelson said that time is running out, and how she thinks that the timing wasn't accidental, because she had been gone from church for a while. I can't remember the whole story, but it happens, you know. I can't remember her exact story, but that sometimes there's people, they're born into the church, they get baptized, but then the family kind of goes astray, and so you kind of like step away from the church, but then you come back. Um, there's different stories out there of coming back or finding the church in the first place for the first time. But anyway, I think about Mindy and others like that that have recently come back to church within the last few years. And I think about how blessed they are that they did come back in time. They've come back in time enough to go to the temple, um, do whatever they need to do on the covenant path and be prepared. So when President Nelson says time is running out in 2019, I assume that he would say that at a time when you still have the chance to, you still have enough time to turn your life around, go to the temple, and live worthily. Repent of serious sins, whatever's going on, change habits. But that was 4 years ago, and it seems for right now that we still have time. So I would take advantage of that time if I were you. If you're listening to this and you're not in a place that you should be, make the change, do it now. Okay, because when time comes, when all of a sudden your city is on fire, if that's how it happens, if it's actual literal fire that's burning down buildings, it's unclear to me whether it's going to be the type of thing where houses and trees are going to be left untouched, but it's just going to, like, the glory of God, the glory of Christ will like make you wither away, and it'll just be like wicked human beings that wither away. I don't know if it's going to be like that. I don't know if it's going to be like a sweeping fire like what we saw in Lahaina. But whenever that happens, or whenever it's pretty clear that that's going to happen, when the world sees the sign of the Son of Man and the tribes of the earth are mourning, there's people out there that have been members of the church that have become inactive or fallen away. They're going to realize their mistake, and then there's not going to be any time to go see the bishop and repent. There's not going to be any time to go to the temple and get your endowments. There's not going to be any time to know all the things that you should know about the church. So, should take it seriously. Okay, this was not selfishness or unkindness. The kind of oil that is needed to illuminate the way and light up the darkness is not shareable. How can one share obedience to the principle of tithing? A mind at peace from righteous, a mind at a mind at peace from righteous living, an accumulation of knowledge. How can one share faith or testimony? How can one share attitudes or chastity or the experience of a mission? How can one share temple privileges? Each must obtain that kind of oil for himself. The foolish virgins were not averse to buying oil. They knew they should have oil. They merely procrastinated, not knowing when the bridegroom would come. In the parable, oil can be purchased at the market. In our lives, the oil of preparedness is accumulated drop by drop in righteous living. Attendance at sacrament meetings adds oil to our lamps, drop by drop over the years. Fasting, family prayer, home teaching, now ministering, control of bodily appetites, preaching the gospel, studying the scriptures. Each act of dedication and obedience is a drop added to our store. Deeds of kindness, payment of offerings and tithes, chaste thoughts and actions, marriage and the covenant for eternity. These two contribute importantly to the oil with which we can at midnight refuel our exhausted lamps. Midnight is so late for those who have midnight is so late for those who have procrastinated. Behold, your days of probation are past. Ye have procrastinated the day of your salvation until it's everlastingly too late, and your destruction is made sure. It's from Helaman 13:38. Tennyson's poem, Ginevra, the queen repenting her infidelity, recognizes that the harm she has caused cannot be undone. Late, late, so late, and dark the night and chill. Late, late, so late, but we can enter still. Too late, ye cannot enter now. No light had we, for that we do repent. In learning this, the bridegroom will relent. Too late, ye cannot enter now. No light, so late, and dark and chill the night. Oh, let us in, that we may find the light. Too late, ye cannot enter now. Have we not heard the bridegroom is so sweet? Oh, see? Christ, he loves you so much that everything's going to be perfectly okay. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything because Christ is nothing but love, and that's going to cover you. That's not how it works. He does love you, but there's still commandments, and there's laws that have to be obeyed, and there's covenants that have to be made. Have we not heard the bridegroom is so sweet? Oh, let us in, though, late, to kiss his feet. No, too late. Ye cannot enter now. The day of the marriage feast approaches. The coming of the Lord is nigh, and there are many among us who are not ready for the great and glorious event. Of such the Lord said, And that servant which knew his Lord's will, and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes. But he that knew not, and did commit things worthy of stripes, shall be beaten with a few stripes. For unto whomsoever is given, of him much required. And to him, and to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more. For those who heed the warning and make their preparations, for those found at midnight with the oil of righteousness in their lamps, for those with patience, long-suffering, and full dedication, the promise is that they shall sit down at the banquet with their Lord. And at that day, when I shall come in my glory, shall the parable be fulfilled which I spake concerning the 10 virgins. For they that are wise and have received the truth, and have taken the Holy Spirit for their guide, and have not been deceived, verily I say unto you, that they shall not be hewn down and cast into the fire, but shall abide the day. And the earth shall be given unto them for an inheritance, and they shall multiply and wax strong, and their children shall grow up without sin unto salvation. And God himself shall be with them and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall no more be death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there by any more pain. I think that's a typo. Neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, He that overcometh, as in like overcoming the world, right, and finding peace, like President Nelson said, he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. All right, and then it ends. So you guys, please recognize the signs of the times. It's so blatantly obvious that we're in a completely different time than we were a decade ago or back in the 90s. Oh, sorry, back in the 2010s or the 2000s, and definitely the 90s and the 80s and before. Okay, it's obvious. It's obvious. All right, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.